I'm Mark Seifter.
And I'm Linda Zayas Palmer.
And this is Arcane Mark.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome to Class Chat Swashbuckler. We're going to talk about the Swashbuckler class from the Advanced Player's Guide.
You can see our iconic Swashbuckler right there, Jerome.
That's right. That was my class from the Advanced Player's Guide. I guess we were saying in the core rulebook who wrote each of the classes, and I forgot for both of the Advanced Player's Guide classes that came up until now. So, Investigator was Logan Bonner, and Oracle and Witch were Liz Liddell. So Swashbuckler, that's the one I worked on.
So let's start off with the way that the core rulebook, the Advanced Player's Guide characterizes the Swashbuckler.
Sure, go for it, Linda.
Yeah, many warriors rely on brute force, weighty armor, or cumbersome weapons. For you, battle is a dance where you move among foes with style and grace. You dart among combatants with flair and land powerful finishing moves with a flick of the wrist and a flash of the blade, all while countering attacks with elegant riposte that keep enemies off balance. Harassing and thwarting your foes lets you charm fate and cheat death time and again with aplomb and plenty of flair.
Yep. So, when it comes to the Swashbuckler class, it's a pretty standard dexterity-based martial class. It's got 10 hit points, plus Constitution modifier. Initial proficiencies are expert in perception, reflex, and will. Only fortitude is trained. You get acrobatics, a skill determined by your style, and then 4 additional skills. And your attacks are simple and martial weapons, unarmed attacks. Your defense are light armor and unarmored defense, but you're dex-based. You don't need heavier armor than that. And your class DC is Swashbuckler class DC. Mm-hmm. So that's what you've got for the Swashbuckler's key initial proficiencies.
For dream combat encounters, Swashbucklers show off to gain panache, leverage their flair to bring up powerful finishing moves, stay nimble, moving into the best position to perform your maneuvers while dodging enemy blows and responding with swift riposte. Depending upon your style, you might dance among your foes, slip past their defenses, or beguile, distract, or frighten them. In my experience playing as Swashbuckler, yeah, for sure. Like, Swashbuckler is not the class that's just gonna walk up to something and be like, I attack 3 times. I attack 3 times. Like, you're definitely not gonna be doing that. You're gonna be moving around, you're gonna be thinking about the whole battlefield, and you're gonna be thinking about creative ways to showcase your skills. The Swashbuckler definitely lends itself well to in-combat banter and roleplay as well.
Mm-hmm. During social encounters, you're equally likely to charm or intimidate others, or both. You might be an adept socialite, or you might create distractions for others who do the talking.
While exploring, you keep a careful eye on your surroundings and other people, always prepared to leap into action with bravado and flair. You interact with the environment in bold, sweeping strokes, rather than skulking to avoid detection.
Yep.
I just hear the rogue behind that who's just like, I have quiet allies? Oh no. Mm-hmm. I guess I'll stay in the shadows while you run out and draw the attention.
In downtime, you might carouse at the tavern, repair and maintain your armaments, or train to learn new techniques. To maintain your impressive reputation, you might build an organization in your name or establish a following of admirers.
Others probably admire your theatrics, bravado, and skill with the blade, find you arrogant unless they know you well enough to appreciate your style, and underestimate how much of a threat you pose until they face the end of your deadly blade.
You might portray yourself as a heroic daredevil or a roguish braggart, knowing you can live up to the image you present. Hold yourself in high esteem, confident in your abilities and your reputation, or practice your skills and maneuvers regularly to ensure you never grow rusty. So that is what's going on with the intro to the Swashbuckler. Let's dig into the actual class. So We've got your initial proficiencies and everything that you always get. But what we also have is panache. You care as much about the way you accomplish something as whether you actually accomplish it in the first place. So you can gain panache by performing either the skill associated with your specific style or tumble through action and at the GM's discretion. A particularly daring action that also happens to beat a very hard DC for your level will give you panache. And that is important. It means that you don't have to attempt something that's a very hard DC for your level. Like, you could do something that's very easy, but if
Mhm.
your roll exceeded a very hard DC for your level and it was very daring, the GM could still give you panache.
Yes.
So, like, a very hard for your level is 30, but you're doing something that's, like, only DC 15, but you get a 32. That's
That means
still
you
fine.
did it in such an amazing and flashy way that
Yes.
you get panache.
It was awesome enough. So, when you're doing that, it can be a little, it can take a little bit longer to calculate the result of the roll because you have to find your degree of success and whether or not you beat a very hard DC, but it's worth it to get some panache for creative actions.
Mhm.
While you have panache, you get an extra 5 feet of movement and 1 extra bonus to tumble through or take other actions that give you panache. And then you get Precise Strike, which is another feature that we're going to get into that gives you a little bit more damage while you are in that situation. And you can do finishers, which do a lot more damage. So then Swashbuckler styles determine what you're going to do. And normally we, like, sometimes have done these at the end, but these are short enough that I think we can just do it now. What
Yeah,
do you
sounds
think about
good.
that? So why don't you do the Battle Dancer since
So,
that's your
yes,
Swashbuckler.
exactly. Battle Dancers see approach battle as a performance art. They're trained in performance and gain the fascinating performance skill feat, and they gain panache during encounter when their result of their performance check to perform exceeds the will DC of an observing foe. So naturally, this lends itself to dance being the performance that you're describing yourself doing, moving about the battlefield in confounding ways. The Battle Dancer that I'm playing is an elf with all the feats you can have as an elf to move quickly, so she's just constantly moving around the battlefield at high speed.
Her speed is like what? Like
40?
40 without panache.
Correct.
And when she gets panache, her speed is 50.
Yes.
So
And
she's
like
close to the point where it's 55.
Yeah, so it's like, can you reach that enemy? Yes.
Yes. It's constantly like she's faster when she's in panache than my mount
That's correct.
on my champion cavalier. So it's always funny when the GM's like, "Can you reach that?" And Linda's like, "Yeah."
It's like, wait, do you have enough actions for that? You have to do your yep. Remember, I'm faster than the mount.
That's right.
But so folks are talking a little bit about the buckler and the swashbuckler being being sort of in the accurate position opposed to its classical
Because
description
bucklers should be held
in like fantasy RPGs. But
fantasy RPGs always have them be the not using up a hand shield, which is definitely not accurate.
But it's accurate here.
That's correct.
Wayne
But
Reynolds
the
knows his
rules
stuff.
of it are still not accurate because you can still not use up a hand. And, like, everything about them is based off that fact at this point. So, maybe next time we'll do bucklers more accurately. Maybe not. There is, like, kind of an interesting mechanical niche for a shield that doesn't take up your hand, even though that's absolutely not what bucklers did. Alright, anyway, braggarts boast taunt and psychologically needles foes using intimidation and demoralizing foes to get panache. Then Fencer uses deception with careful feints and false openings and uses fate and creative diversion to get panache. So it's an interesting balance because demoralize is by far like the strongest action of all the 3 styles we've talked about so far, but it also doesn't work again on an enemy. So if you don't have very many enemies, you're gonna run out of things to demoralize. And so that's kind of the braggart's give and take. There's a later ability they can get to have finishers allow them to demoralize the same person again, and it's very powerful. Whereas Fencer has 2. And so Fencer is able to target 3 different defenses. Because it can go against reflex with tumble through, it can go against perception, or it can go against
with deception.
Yeah, with deception. Actually, I guess feint and creative diversion are both perception. No, the one that targets 3 defenses is Gymnast. Gymnast is the most different. You reposition, maneuver, and bewilder your foes with daring feats of physical prowess. You're trained in athletics. You gain panache during an encounter whenever you successfully grapple, shove, or trip a foe. And so, you wind up needing to put up your strength, which is honestly not a bad idea anyway to get a little bit of extra damage, but a lot of people on dex-based characters love dumping it, and you can't. But if you take this, you do get a bunch of defenses because you can also go up against their fortitude. And usually one of fortitude or reflex is going to be lower than the other on a lot of creatures. And so that gives you a lot of options, and you're going to get some pretty good damage. But the interesting thing is they're all attack trait. But a lot of them are much better than the other actions. Like, for example, in the playtest game that when we were playtesting this, Linda's Swashbuckler is in another game we're playing now. But the Swashbuckler was a gymnast with a focus on grapple who managed to, like, restrain the final boss, who was, like, a severe encounter for a group of 6 PCs, solo, or no, not so, there were a few other things, but it's still a +3, and then he had some friends, and he just restrained it. And so the thing about gymnast is, your actions are so powerful that you might lean into that plus bonus if you're already in panache on your action and other feats and abilities that make you better at doing the actions. Whereas all the other ones are like, I love my actions, they're good, but they're also helping me get panache. And then finally, wit. Friendly, clever, and full of humor, with witticisms that leave foes unprepared, trained in diplomacy, and gains the bon mot skill feat, which lets you gain panache during an encounter whenever you succeed at bon mot, which you basically just have witty banter with your enemy, and then they are stupefied until they spend an action to say something back. And their action can be like a demoralize or something like that if they want it to be. It doesn't have to be. They can just literally spend the action.
I see comments there. Wit into Bellflower Teller is a cool combo. The basket hilt is almost bigger than the buckler for sure. Well, I mean, style is important for the Swashbuckler.
That's true.
And a compliment on your French.
C'est bon. I did take French in high school, but I don't really remember it very well. But I can at least pronounce bon mot. And not say, like, bon mot or something like that. Even just saying that. Alright, so, precise strike. You're gonna do some additional precision damage when you have gained panache. It's 2 extra precision damage. If you do a finisher, it increases to 2d6 precision damage. That's a lot of precision damage. And it goes up at level 5, 9, 13, and 17 to add 1 more precision damage and then 1d6 more precision damage on a finisher. And your first finisher is Confident Finisher, which is basically very similar to, or it lets you do some damage even on a failure. As long as you don't critically fail, you'll do half of your precise strike finisher damage.
And as a finisher, this is going to be the last attack that you make. So you'll want to...
It may be the first attack that you make too.
Yes, it may be the first attack you make too, but in terms of like the setup for the rounds, you've got, so with the Swashbuckler, there's sort of this interesting give and take where you decide, like, when are you going to do that? When are you going to do that powerful attack?
Stump Monkey points out wit can be very strong on a Bellflower Tiller archetype. That's definitely true. And Farindor says their local venture captain has a wizard based on Fabio romance novel covers with Bon Bon. So that's pretty cool too.
There's a lot of characters who can use it for sure.
Yep. Then there are all the things you expect: Swashbuckler feats, skill feats, general feats. You pick up Great Fortitude at third, which means by 3rd level, you're an expert in every defense and perception. Which, I mean, not AC. Nobody is. But,
yeah.
Or I guess monks.
Monks are, yeah.
But they don't have perception by then. Anyway, you also pick up Opportune Riposte, which is where whenever a foe in your reach critically fails a strike against you, you smack them. Or try to disarm them, but... both can be legit, because when you disarm a foe in the middle of their turn, that can definitely mess with, like, their attack after the one that critically failed is really messed up with the -2 and the multiple attack penalty. Like, forget about it. Of course, their first attack probably only critically failed on a 1, so it might be a late attack in their routine.
So again, with our like Swashbuckler and Rogue, where the Rogue's like, oh my gosh, why did you just charge in there? The Swashbuckler just daring them all to attack, and then when Swashbuckler does get critically missed, then
in our playtest we had 2 Swashbucklers, and the other one was a more traditional, like, was not just constantly grappling everything, but was a fencer, and the fencer managed to get into a spot on the map where every door in the room, except for the ones the PCs had cleared, opened up, and they would run into that fencer Swashbuckler before they got to anybody else. And a bunch of different encounters just, like, kind of aggroed together. It was eventually, like, it was, like, severe +6 or something like that, but they weren't all there at once. It took a little while for enemies to get to the room because they had to open a bunch of doors. And they won. Because, and the fencer was just, like, riposting constantly, because some, the enemies overall were not that strong, but there were just, like, dozens of them eventually. They weren't that weak either. The Life Oracle had to keep the fencer up, which the party also had, and the 2 witches were definitely having fun with Area of Effect and things like that. They had convinced the entire party to get cold runes, and then had, like, a weakness against cold hex, although the problem was the adventure we were playing, all the enemies were resistant to cold. Or, not all, but most. Anyway, it was fun. What have we got here? There's skill increases. Stylish tricks let you get additional skill feats that other people don't get.
There's a comment about disarm. Yeah, like, it does take a critical success to literally
get their weapon out, but with opportune riposte, you can do the regular successful disarm and give them a -2, and that is much more effective if it happens during their return. Disarm can basically just win the fight, more or less, if you disarm something that's very dependent on their weapon, such as a PC. So it's important that it's not as easy to do, because critically succeeding on a skill action happens a lot more often than you think, and regular successes happen all the freaking time. So let's look at Vivacious Speed. That's why Linda's speed is 50 and not at 45 when she's in Panache, because it increases the amount of extra speed you get when you are in your Panache.
It starts at 10 feet. It increases by 5 feet at 7th, 11th, 15th, and 19th
That's
levels.
why Linda is close to getting to 55.
And when you don't have Panache, you still get half of that.
Yep. Actually, so maybe you're only at 45, because maybe the 40 depends on getting the half of the Vivacious Speed.
No, I don't think so, because I'm an elf with 2 feet
that's right.
increased speed.
That's why the other time that you weren't in Panache during the encounter, you actually said you could go 45.
Yes.
Yep.
Correct.
Yes, there you go. So yeah, she's at 45 and 50 when she's in Panache. And at level 7, she will be at 55 in Panache and 45 still, because it's rounded down. Ability boost, ancestry feats, everybody gets that. Weapon expertise, martial characters get that at level 5. You get the critical specialization effect, so that's good. Not everybody always gets that. Evasion at level 7. You get weapon specialization there, which martial classes do. Exemplary finisher at level 9 is pretty nice. You add special effects on your finishers based on your style. Battle dancers can step as a free action immediately after the finisher. That is extremely handy for messing up enemies' routines. So if you're a battle dancer and you are just at the edge of the enemy's reach, maybe you're, like, dancing around with some kind of a reach weapon, you can smack them with the reach weapon and then back off, or you're not a reach weapon and you just have the same reach, and then they have to move to or step to get up to you. Braggart, we already mentioned this, but you can stop the temporary immunity to demoralize. Very, very powerful. Fencer, the foe is flat-footed until the end of your next turn against everybody, so that one's one that actually helps the rest of your team, unlike some of the other ones. The Gymnast, if the foe is grabbed, restrained, or prone, you gain a circumstance bonus to damage roll equal to twice the number of weapon damage dice. So you combo with yourself, and you also combo if you have somebody else in your team who's going to trip them anyway.
Yeah.
Then you can add a whole bunch of extra damage and do the most damage. And then Wit, they take a penalty on attack rolls against you until the start of your next turn. So, All of them except Fencer help you. Fencer helps your buddies. And you, because it's until the end of your next turn. Swashbuckler Expertise gives you Swashbuckler Class DC at Expert at level 9. Level 11, Continuous Flare. Whenever you succeeded a check during Exploration that would have granted you Panache, you get a +1 to further checks for those actions, which ends when Exploration changes to a different scene determined by the GM or an encounter or downtime.
You also get Vigilant Senses to increase your proficiency rank to Master at level 11.
For Perception. It doesn't come at the same time as Evasion, unlike Rogues and Rangers. It's a little slower. But you get Improved Evasion at level 13, so that's Legendary Reflex, and your failures, or your critical failures are failures, your failures on damaging take half damage, and already your successes are critical successes. Light Armor Expertise at level 13 is going to give you Expert in Light Armor, obviously. Then you get Weapon Mastery there, too, like other martial classes. Greater Specialization for weapons at 15th, like other martial classes. Keen Flare, also at 15th, is a great one. So that just automatically gives you a keen-like ability when you strike with a weapon or unarmed attack with which you have master proficiency. A 19 on a die that succeeds is a critical success, not just a 20.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, they've got that. Then Resolve at 17 gives you Master at Will saves. So that's not every class gets Master and the special bump up for success to critical success in 2 saves. Swashbuckler does. And Legendary in Reflex, so that's pretty cool. Eternal Confidence at level 19 gives you Master Swashbuckler DC, Class DC, and when you strike as part of a finisher or opportune riposte, you can give the strike the failure effect from Confident Finisher, including the increase from Precise Finisher if you have that feat. You can do so only if the strike uses a weapon or unarmed attack you could use for Confident Finisher. So that lets you, if you like, I really like Confident Finisher because I know I might roll low and I want to do some damage, you can now use other finishers and just always get Confident Finisher's benefit. So you should make sure to have another finisher than Confident Finisher
by the time you get to level 19, which isn't too hard to pick up.
Yep, and then Light Armor Mastery is also at level 19. So that's what you've got in terms of your automatic abilities, and they're not like huge long mysteries like Oracle, so we could just kind of go into the Swashbuckler feats. These are ones that Linda had to decide between two.
Yes, Buckler Expertise. I mean, it is a Swashbuckler after all.
Yep.
Lets you flexibly position your buckler to get a better AC bonus from it.
That's correct. And then there's Disarming Flare, which makes it harder for your foes to regain their grip when they when you knock their weapon partially out of their hands. So basically, when you do that disarm we were talking about, the circumstance bonus and penalty from the disarm, it lasts until the end of your next turn. They can spend an action to try to get rid of it, but then you've just cost them an action. Dueling Parry. Oh yeah, so the thing about Disarming Flare is they still aren't flat-footed like if you had tripped them, so it doesn't do everything the trip does on a success, but the critical success for disarm is just rampantly better for the critical success for trip, so it really makes disarm very, very
And you
favorable.
don't have to be like a particular type of swashbuckler for this. Everybody can take it, even though it obviously works better with
Obviously, the gymnast is like the one that's going to really want it, but anyone could take it. So Dueling Parry is one action where you have a parry weapon and you get a +2 circumstance bonus to AC. Oh wait, no, sorry, it's Dueling Parry. It's the one where you have a hand free and you get a +2 circumstance bonus to AC. That's right. There's a different one that puts up the parry weapons. Flying Blade lets you throw weapons and do your precise strike damage. And you can also use thrown weapon attacks for Confident Finisher. Focused Fascination, when you fascinate performs in a combat encounter, you only need a regular success to fascinate your target. And it works if you're fascinating one target, not multiple targets. Goading Feint. When you trick a foe, you goad them into overextending. This is when you know that they were already flat-footed from something else, such as your finisher.
So you can choose to substitute the normal effects, the normal critical success and successive feint with critical success. The target takes a -2 circumstance penalty to all attack rolls against you before the end of its next turn. And then success, that penalty applies to its next attack against you.
Yes, so you can mess up their offense if you already know you've got flat-footed from something else. Nimble Dodge, like from the Rogue, right before a big attack that you don't want to hit you, like a power attack or just the first attack from a boss, you give yourself a +2 AC. Stop some of those crits. One for All, very powerful feat. It's a one action for people trained in diplomacy. You designate an ally, you can now aid that ally on with your reaction using diplomacy instead of the usual check. It's very powerful because of the fact that diplomacy proficiency scales faster than attack weapon proficiency for anybody except fighters, and so it can allow you to give a pretty substantial bonus from if you roll a critical success, which you probably will before long, and it gives you panache too.
You're next. For when you reduce an enemy to 0 hit points, pick another one to demoralize with a +2 circumstance bonus.
That's right. If you're legendary, you can even do it as a free action.
And just be
on the same trigger.
constantly
every time
threatening
you drop
every time
someone,
you drop
it doesn't
someone.
even
Yes.
cost your reaction.
Yes.
You're just like, yeah, whatever. You were next.
Yes.
That's right. So, that's also on the rogue. So, at second level, we've got After You, which is you're about to roll initiative, and you're like, oh no, you know what? You need this. You go first. I'll go last.
Yes.
And so you voluntarily go last, but you have panache at the start of your turn. If more than one character uses this ability to go last, use the normal rules for resolving ties. Then there's
After You. No, after You.
yes. And it's like, oh no, you are just you are 100 years too soon to be encountering me. I'll go last. No, I'll go last. So antagonize is when you demoralize a creature, its frightened condition can't decrease to less than 1 at the end of its turn unless it either uses a hostile action against you or you can no longer observe or sense you for at least 1 round. So that can be a handy way to keep the debuff up if they refuse to attack you, because they want to attack some other person in your party who's doing something more annoying in general, and it doesn't like literally force them to attack you, but it offers sort of a fork so that they might attack you. Charmed Life is a reaction that it's like Nimble Dodge, except for it's for every saving throw, which actually, in many cases, better than Nimble Dodge because of the fact that you'll be attacked a lot of times. You're not going to be sure exactly when you need it, but you generally know that a save is bad news, and you're like, oh, this is going to kill me. Okay, probably should take that +2.
Finishing follow-through. If your finisher brings a target to 0 hit points, then you gain panache.
Yep, so you get it right back. And it has to be the highest level target if your finisher attacks multiple targets. So if you go into a fight against a giant like Oni and there's a kitten, and you use a confident finisher on the kitten, and the GM decides the kitten was a foe for some reason enough, you can get your panache back, but you spent it and you can't attack again.
Yeah.
But if you do like a piercing finisher to hit the kitten and the Oni, and it defeats the kitten, but does not defeat the Oni, obviously, because you threw the kitten in front with your other action, you do not get your panache back to use on the Oni on the next turn.
Well, but this is about leaving the kitten alone. It tells people
Yes,
that they
it tells them they need to leave the kitten alone.
Yeah, they need to leave the kitten alone
That's
and
why
fight the real foe.
That's why I put that thing in, that parenthetical, so that you don't attack the kitten. So tumble behind is you tumble...
Or the more classic example of bag of rats.
Yes.
Yes.
You tumble through, but they're also flat-footed because they're like, wait, you tumbled through my legs, I can't defend against this. No, I'm the kitten protector, Philip. I'm not the kitten slayer. Unbalancing finisher is a new finisher that is not as confident finisher, but it automatically makes the target flat-footed until the end of your next turn. So it's yet another good way to make the opponent flat-footed. So if you're like, I think I'm going to hit with this, maybe because they're flat-footed against this one attack and their AC is down for now, but I want to keep their AC down for later, you can use an unbalancing finisher.
Flamboyant Athlete is great for if you want to perform all sorts of daring and improbable feats while you are while you have panache, giving you climb speeds and swim speeds, making it much easier for you to high jump and long jump and vertically leap and horizontally leap in all sorts of ways.
Yep. It's very athletic. Guardian's Deflection is a reaction when an ally within your reach is hit by an attack. You can see the attacker, and a +2 circumstance bonus would either turn a crit into a hit or a hit into a miss. With your one-handed weapon and one hand free, you basically deflect the attack on your ally and give them the +2 retroactively. So it's a very powerful way to protect your allies. It's another good way to get the enemies really mad at what you're doing when you get rid of their crits. Impaling Finisher is the one I was talking about that you can't use on the kitten. That's the one where you make a bludgeoning or piercing melee strike and compare the result against AC of up to 2 foes, one of which is adjacent to you and the other of which is directly behind the first one in a straight line and adjacent to them. And you roll the damage once and apply it to both.
Leading Dance is a fun one, particularly for battle dancers, where you sweep the foe up in your dance and move them across the battlefield, away from whichever allies you don't want them next to, and into battle with you, gaining panache in the process.
That's right. And so you wind up moving them either 5 or 10 feet in the direction that you want, and you move along with them in the dance. And as long as you succeed or critically succeed to get the 10 feet of movement. Swaggering Initiative is, you're ready to fight. You get a +2 on initiative and interact to draw a weapon whenever you roll initiative. Twin Parry is the one where you have 2 weapons, and so you get a +1 to AC from the offhand, or 2 if it's a parry weapon. That's the one about parrying. 6th level is Agile Maneuvers, where your maneuvers, grapple, shove, and trip use a -4 instead of a -5, or because they're basically agile, or -8 instead of -10. That's one situation where it's like, I can use the name of a feat from Pathfinder 1st Edition, except for that it literally does exactly what it says in PF2.
Yes.
Now, it makes your maneuvers agile.
But I see a question, the real question is, can you dip and then drop them? I mean, if you decided that the next thing you wanted to do after that was a trip, that would be a really thematic way to trip them.
Yeah, there you go. You do a leading dance and then trip them, and then you say that you dipped and then drop them. Attack of Opportunity is in there at level 6. Combination Finisher, where your strikes, your finisher strikes have a lower multiple attack penalty in case you don't want it to be your first attack. A lot of people like it on their first attack because it's the biggest hit, but if it's got a lower multiple attack penalty, it could be worth it to take the flat panache damage and then do the finisher at the end, especially if it's confident, so missing is not going to lose as much. Speaking of which, Precise Finisher lets you deal the full damage on Confident Finisher, so you could dip down at level 8 and take both Combination and Precise Finisher if you want. Vexing Tumble. Your tumble is even more vexing than the other tumble that was pretty vexing before. You stride up to half your speed and roll an acrobatics check compared to the reflex DC of every foe whose reach you begin in or enter during the movement. On a critical success, they get no reactions and they're flat-footed, and you gain panache. And on a success, they don't get reactions and you gain panache. And on a critical failure, your movement stops at that point. So you might be able to ignore a whole bunch of reactions and get panache.
We're at 8th level with Bleeding Finisher. Your slashing and piercing attacks that allow you to add precise strike damage also cause the target to take persistent bleed damage equal to your precise strike finisher damage.
Which is 3d6.
That's a lot of persistent bleed damage.
3d6 bleed every turn is a lot of extra damage. Don't sleep on Bleeding Finisher, except maybe you want Dual Finisher if you're a 2-weapon user, where you make 2 strikes, one with each weapon, against a different foe for 1 action. And the second strike with a non-agile weapon takes a -2 penalty, but only increase your multiple attack penalty after attempting both strikes. So if you like Double Slice because it doesn't apply multiple attack penalty, but you're like, oh, but it's 2 actions, and you like the one that Rangers have, like the twin thing, where it's 1 action for 2 attacks, but it does increase multiple attack penalty, and you want the best of both worlds, that's Dual Finisher.
Nimble Roll, for if you're a big fan of Nimble Dodge, lets you use Nimble Dodge before attempting reflex saves as well. And if you use it and the triggering attack effect fails or critically fails, or if you succeed or critically succeed at the saving throw, you can also stride up to 10 feet.
Yes.
So
it can be very obnoxious to your opponents if you mess up their first attack.
And then you run away. So then they have to, if they want to attack you again, they have to then spend their next action moving up.
Yep. A lot of the abilities that make it really easy to take movement after the enemy attacks, you still have to stay in their reach, but Nimble Roll does not do that. Stunning Finisher is a finisher that they get a Fortitude save, and even if they succeed, they can't use reactions, and until their next turn, and if they fail, they're actually stunned. So stunning finisher is very handy against an opponent that has really annoying reactions because it's probably not going to critically succeed on its save. Vivacious Bravado
is like you are so puffed up on panache that you literally gain temporary hit points.
Yep. It's equal to your level plus your charisma modifier.
Yeah.
It's a lot of temporary hit points. 10th level Buckler Dance. Your buckler is always up. Daring Do. That's one that gymnasts like more than everyone else, but it's still very, very powerful. It is so powerful that builds that are not swashbucklers, that are based on some of these skills, I've seen them posted multi-classing into Swashbuckler, and then their 20th level feat is taking Daring Do. You get to roll twice and take the highest results for the skills that would gain you panache when you already have panache. So obviously that's very dangerous if you're using grapple because it's pretty likely to restrain a large variety of foes. Dueling Dance is the version of Buckler Dance, but for having your hand free and getting the AC. Reflexive Riposte is basically an extra action to do an opportune riposte, or extra reaction each turn to do an opportune riposte. And Targeting Finisher is a finisher where you hit and then pick whether you targeted their arm to give them Enfeebled 2 or Enfeebled 1 for a minute in addition on a crit. Head for Stupefied 2 or on a crit Stupefied 1, pick that on a caster so that they get a chance to fail on their spells. And Legs to give them a speed penalty of minus 10 feet and for 1 round, and on a critical hit, minus 5 feet for 1 minute.
For at 12th level, you could take Cheat Death, which it does exactly what you might expect. You would have died, but actually, you're at 1 hit point.
Yeah, but you become more doomed because death
doesn't like this.
Death figures things out.
Yes, Death does figure things out, but it makes you look really badass.
Yep.
Mobile Finisher. 1 action to stride and then strike, and you can use it with any kind of movement that you have.
Yep. Flamboyant Leap is 2 actions when you're master in athletics, and you stylishly leap and deliver a powerful finisher. So you leap, high leap, or long jump, and tap to 1 single action finisher at any point during the jump. And it can't be one that includes other movements, such as Mobile Finisher, because you're in the middle of a jump, guys. Come on.
Impossible Riposte. Your riposte deflects attacks back at their source.
Yep.
When they're outside,
outside your reach.
Just completely outside of your reach, you somehow get it to deflect back at them.
That includes like if they put their tentacle at you from far away, or a ranged attack, or whatever it is, or a Ray of Frost. It's just somehow you make them smack themselves with their attack. That's what's called Impossible Riposte. Perfect Finisher. You focus your panache into an impeccable assault. Roll twice. Use the better result. That's, like, if you don't like special effects on your finishers, that's the one to take before level 19 so that you can roll twice, and even if you're just like, I am Paradigm, I want my hit, I want to do some damage, you roll twice, and if you miss on both of them, you still do the backup damage. Stop hitting yourself was an alternative possible name for that. Twin Defense is the 1 action stance to do Twin Parry all of the time. Deadly Grace at level 16 is going to give you the Deadly trait on your weapon for Agile and Finesse, and if it was already a deadly weapon, then you double the number of dice from the trait.
We've also got some more roll twice to take the better options for you. At level 16, Felicitous Riposte lets you roll twice in an attack roll and take the better result when you make an opportune riposte. And at level 18, Incredible Luck lets you roll twice and take the better result when you're using Charmed Life.
Which, Charmed Life with Incredible Luck is legitimately one of the best defensive saving throw. It maybe is the best defensive saving throw reaction in the game.
Well, like, expected value is like getting a +6 on your save.
Yes. Except that it's a little bit different because of the way it affects your chances on critical successes and critical failures.
That was sort of the TF1 way.
And because of the fact that, although it is true that if it's one of your types of saves that, like, changes critical failures into failures and successes into critical successes, that blurs the line even more. But it's very powerful.
It's very powerful.
But lethal finisher also is very powerful because when you do your finisher, you forego your normal precise strike damage. Instead, they get a saving throw. And on a critical success, it still does something. It does 6 precision damage. That is worse than what you forewent.
But they critically succeeded,
and,
okay?
Yeah. That is worse than what you forewent unless you rolled really badly on the precision damage. On a successful save, they take 66, which is about what they would have taken anyway. On a failure, they take 12d6 precision damage. On a critical failure, they take 18d6 precision damage. But it also has the death trait. So even on a critical success, if that brings them to 0, they die. Then parry and riposte is going to let you use opportune riposte against an enemy who just fails a strike against you. They don't even need to critically fail. Like, people are failing strikes against you all the time. I hope you have the extra one, if you have this, and the one to roll twice and take the better result. You do have to have damaged the creature with a finisher on the last turn and have a circumstance bonus to AC from a parry, because it's parry and riposte.
Yes.
So it's not like you can have this going on every single creature on the map at the same time, but it's extremely powerful and effective.
Inexhaustible counter moves at 20th level gives you an extra reaction at the start of every enemy's turn that you can use to opportune riposte or AOO them.
Super, super strong, especially with parry and riposte. And Panache Paragon gives you an extra action every turn that you can use to tumble through or perform your skill action listed in your Swashbuckler style as you're permanently quickened to do that. And also other actions that would gain you Panache at the GM's discretion. Which is generally the loosest quickened in the game. But I'm sure that most GM, like, if a GM is running at level 20 and decides that, like, your weird claim that you should be able to do 2 spells per turn and that gains Panache is legit, then that's kind of on them.
Yeah.
But yeah, Swashbuckler is really awesome. So when it comes to the Swashbuckler multi-class archetype, let's take a look at the Swashbuckler archetype. So I already talked about the fact that there are some people taking it on their builds that use skill actions, literally to take their 20th level feat as daring do the 10th level Swashbuckler feat, because like everybody, it's got basic and advanced flair. Take a 1st or 2nd level Swashbuckler feat, then take one up to half your character level. It's got really good feats. People want to pilfer it. That's where that comes in. The dedication gives you your style, the Panache class feature, and you can gain Panache. So you can get that 5 feet of movement speed, but you don't get precise strike, so you don't do a bunch of extra damage.
But you can pick up Precise Strike as a 4th level feat, finishing precision.
Yep.
This is,
but it does 1 damage, or 1d6 on a finisher, and it gives you a basic finisher that doesn't do anything except for qualify for the 1d6 from Precise Strike. You've got Swashbuckler dedication also gives you acrobatics or the skill associated with your style, if you want, and Swashbuckler class DC. And then the last 2, or there's 3 other feats, right? So there's Swashbuckler's Riposte, which gives you opportune riposte at level 6. Swashbuckler's Speed lets you get a 10-foot status bonus from Panache and 5 feet when you're not in Panache. And then Evasiveness is going to give you Master Reflex. So, you know, it's a pretty solid and one that you might want, especially if you're going to use those Panache skills anyway. You can always just not get the finisher, for example, and just enjoy the +1 on those skills and the extra movement speed while after the first time you use it in combat, and then possibly pick up more speed or reflex or other things like that. So in terms of what archetypes are good for Swashbucklers, so there's a bunch that can work well depending on what your style is, but honestly, anything that is an archetype that uses skill actions that your GM thinks earns you Panache is going to be amazingly powerful. So, like, for example, I don't know, if there's an archetype that has skill actions that are some really good actions that are based on intimidation, and your GM's like, yeah, that's pretty Panache full when you're using those a lot of the time, so you can get Panache if you beat the very hard DC, then that's going to make that archetype better for a Braggart, for example. And same for any of the other styles. In general, also archetypes that provide you some benefits that are going to be either passive or provide utility, such as like picking up a little bit dash of spellcasting, are going to be helpful, rather than ones that provide you with more reactions because you have a million.
You got a lot of reactions, yeah. So
Or
having a lot of options for things that you're going to be doing, because if you wanna always be doing your finishers like your only thing that is a strike that turn, then having some other things that you can do to sprinkle in there so that you can get the most out of your finishers.
Right. But you don't want something that gives too heavy of action cost, because also using your panache action and your finisher are going to pretty reliably be two of your actions. You may need to use your panache action multiple times or move, but tumble through is a move that also gives you panache, so that can be how you move. That's how Linda usually moves. So you can consider archetypes that give you a third action, but keeping in mind that that third action is sometimes snack.
Yes.
You don't want one where that third action is very greedy and wants to be done every turn, because that's going to limit you. So that's kind of where we're at for Swashbuckler, and we took like exactly the normal amount of time. Shall we say goodbye to YouTube?
Let's.
All right, bye YouTube. See
Bye.
you next time.